welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah. As always, I am delighted to be with you for another author interview. As we get started, I do want to remind you to please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you are either listening to or watching this episode on. Really does help the algorithm, gets the podcast out to more listeners, viewers, readers, such as yourselves. If you want to help the podcast in another way, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. There you can leave a tip or a donation, whatever you want to call it. It all helps. This podcast does not exist without you, and all of your support is greatly appreciated, no matter what form that support takes, whether that is liking social media posts, sharing episodes, recommending the podcast, just liking and following and subscribing, etc. Greatly appreciated. But if you do want to help in a monetary fashion, as I said, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. Thank you, as always, for all of your support. Greatly, greatly appreciated. How was your Christmas if you celebrate? There was no episode last week, not because it was Christmas, but because the author with whom I'm speaking today actually, poor thing, got sick. Never good to have to get sick the week of Christmas, but she felt better and we were able to do the episode this past weekend, or the interview this past weekend. So bringing you 2 interviews and episodes this week. So one today, one hopefully on Friday, if everything goes well. We are still ironing out some kinks with the technology issues, but each time it's getting better. I'm figuring out more things that I need to address. So I feel very proud of myself for figuring things out. Maybe someone else could have done it much quicker and much easier, much more easily, but I am working on it, and I'm quite proud of myself. My Christmas was lovely. It was very quiet, and that is okay. Hubby and I spent it together watching Christmas movies. His promise to me this year was that he would watch lots of Christmas movies with me. Now, this isn't hard to get him to do. He loves Christmas movies, and we watch Christmas movies every year. The last couple of years, though, he hasn't really been feeling it, and that's been okay. There's been valid reasons for that, but this year he said, nope, I promise you that we are going to watch Christmas movies, and we have. A record number of Christmas movies have been watched in our household, so love it. We talked to our families, we watched Christmas movies, we hung out with the dogs. All good things, and very grateful to have had the day and to spend it with my hubby and my puppies. You know, if I can't be with my extended family, having those 3 incredibly important beings with me is very, very important. So I hope that your day was amazing. Tomorrow already, New Year's Eve. Can't believe that 2025 is coming to a close. Pretty sure it started about 5 minutes ago, but hopefully you have something fun planned for tomorrow, or you're going to go to bed early. If you would like, you can feel free to use my time zone. Portugal is 5 hours ahead of the East Coast and 8 hours ahead of the West Coast. Even more if you're listening from Hawaii. So if you would like to use my time zone and go to bed when I go to bed at midnight, I say good for you. We're hopefully going to go down to the beach to watch fireworks tomorrow, but we'll see how that goes. I'll report back at the next episode. At any rate, my author today is Kait Ballenger. She was thankfully feeling better and able to do the interview. Not because she could do the interview, just because I hate for anyone to be sick, and so I'm glad that she was feeling better. Kait Ballenger is the author of the Original Sinners series. There are 2 out currently, Original Sinner and Wicked Believer. We are mostly talking about Original Sinner today in today's episode, because it is a series, and that is always hard to talk about without giving, as you know, a lot of spoilers. This is dark romantasy and paranormal romance. Why could I not think of that word? Paranormal romance, and it is what other tropes? So fake dating, but with a twist. And we're going to get into that. But let me give you the description of Original Sinners. Give me just 1 second. I actually have Wicked Believer up on my computer, which is the second one, as you see next to me. Original Sinners. This is the first book in the Original Sinner of the Original Sinners trilogy. Seven deadly and ultra-rich sins rule New York City, and though she came here to escape her past, one woman's true path to freedom might be the devil's bonds in this scorching hot romantasy from Kait Ballenger. The seven deadly sins keep high profiles in the Big Apple. Lust runs brothels. Sloth's a media streamer. You get the picture. Pride, though, he's more mysterious. You might know him as Lucifer. Temptation irresistibly embodied. The paparazzi are dying for some burning hot gossip. So when someone publishes my scathing but private rant about him, they eat it up. And now my job is on the line. After all, he is my boss. With his vicious siblings vying for his power, Lucifer needs to distract the press. So he reframes my tirade as a lover's spat, demanding I play the devil's fiancé. I need to be a good girl, smile for the cameras, nothing more. But cocky and cruel as he is, his darkness awakens something wicked in me. Sexy and in control, he might just be the cure, an extra dose of sin to heal me from a lifetime of shame and subservience. And I like it. So that is the description of Original Sinner. This description was told from the perspective of Charlotte. She is the main character, the protagonist. It is told from both Charlotte and Lucifer's points of view, although we do get more of Charlotte's. I love that. I don't know why, but the phrase Lucifer's fiance sounds like a curse, or you're calling someone something not very nice. You, Lucifer's fiance. Or maybe I just need to get out more. I'm not really sure. But as you could see, and as I said earlier, this is Romantasy. It is paranormal, dark romance, and fake dating. But I'm not sure I had it on my 2025 bingo card that I would read a book about fake dating, but fake dating the devil. It was a different twist, but more so than that, it goes into a lot of deeper issues, a lot of issues about shame, about purity culture, about different ideas in terms of sins and what they mean. And there's a lot of deeper issues along with a very steamy, very spicy romance. This does have a very high spice level. So if you are someone who loves that, this is perfect for you. If you're someone that maybe likes a few less peppers in terms of the spice spectrum, be warned. This does have a high level of spice. So, but there's a spectrum for a reason, which I love. You can have everything, and there is a book on a spice level for everyone. This one just happens to be on more toward the other end of the spectrum from a closed door romance. This is not a closed door romance. We are going to let Kait talk about the book and the series. Again, this one is called Original Sinner. The series is called Original Sinners, and the second book is Wicked Believer. The author is Kait Ballenger. Let's go ahead and turn to that interview with Kait. Kait, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's taken a bit to get here to this point, but thanks for being here. We are here to talk about your series of books. There's already 2 out. Before we do that, though, if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment, introducing yourself, that would be great.
Yeah, so my name is Kait Ballenger, and I write paranormal romance and dark romantasy. And I've been writing for many, many years now, and just enjoying myself. My latest release is Original Sinner came out earlier this year. And then shortly after that, a few months later, Wicked Believer, which is the second book in the series. So for those who aren't really familiar with me and my work, it's a sort of dark romantasy, paranormal romance crossover. And I like to say, think Netflix's Lucifer meets 50 Shades of Grey. So the setting is New York City. Lucifer and the other seven deadly sins are now living topside, and the heroine ends up working for Lucifer, and then she ends up fake dating the devil, and like chaos ensues from there.
Did you ever, let's go back 20 years, think that you would say the phrase fake dating the devil?
I mean, I don't know that I anticipated it, but I was always reading some like wild books even in my younger years, like an author that really inspired me when I was young, and I was reading should have been reading her was Laurel K. Hamilton, and I loved her Anita Blake series and also her Mary Gentry books, which was like I should not have been reading those at the age I was reading them, but
Yeah.
they were, they were dark, they were twisty, they were sexy, and so like I don't think I ever would have anticipated that I was going to be where I am now writing books about somebody fake dating the devil, but it wouldn't have seemed too strange.
No. I am Gen X, and we read way more than we should have at very inappropriate ages. So I understand.
Yes.
What was your inspiration for the series?
Oh yeah. So it actually started from a very different place than I think most people would expect because um I really, as an author, kind of like to keep with the rule of I don't want to write anything that I wouldn't love to read. So if I'm not having fun with it as both a reader and the writer, it's not something that I'm going to be working on. So like for me, I'm always seeking like myself having fun in the process in the same way that the reader would be having fun. And at the time that I was coming up with the idea for Original Sinner, I was really into reading a lot of the Hades and Persephone retellings that were popping up in the romance market at that time. There was quite a few of them. There's still a couple that are quite popular. And I was really, really enjoying those stories. But there was already so many of them in the market. And I was like, I really don't want to do just yet another version of a Hades Persephone retelling, but I really want to write something with a similar core to this. And so then I started kind of a thought exercise of asking myself, well, like, well, who would Hades be if you put him in a different pantheon? And ultimately, the answer I came up with for, Christian mythos is that he would be Lucifer.
Right.
And so when that idea sparked, I was like, oh, okay, well, if Lucifer is now, this character when we're bringing him into the modern world, like, of course his siblings are going to be the seven deadly sins, and like the world building sort of just built itself outward from there. So this was really like meant to be a Hades Persephone story at the start, but I wanted it with a different twist.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like it's they say write the book you want to see, but if that book maybe is already had several iterations, give it a
Yeah,
twist.
yeah. A fresh twist, like a different take in a way to make it like updated. And honestly, like from a writing perspective, I'm so glad that I did it that way because putting it in a modern New York City and making it, Lucifer and the other seven deadly sins allowed me to do so much, I think, like almost socio-political commentary that I
Mhm.
wouldn't have gotten to play with if I had stuck to original Greek mythos. And so I was really glad that that ended up marrying so well to like this modern like tale that I
Yeah.
ended up weaving.
Yeah, and we're going to come back to that as we talk about things. But I can see your shirt says, from my angle, making men.
Oh, it's wildly inappropriate. So if anybody
Okay,
in the family friendly listening, but it's
okay.
Medusa, and you can imagine what she's making men do.
I could, yes, I could see snakes now. Then I saw, okay,
Yeah.
so Medusa makes sense, and we'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it to imagination.
Yeah, yeah. We'll keep it mostly family friendly as much as we
Right.
can while talking about this particular series.
Exactly. Yes, considering that if you had to classify the podcast, it would be more of a closed door romance.
Yes.
We'll work with what we have.
Yes.
Um, okay, so talk about the challenges then of personifying the seven deadly sins.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think the real challenge is that you want to stay true to, like, if they're truly the embodiment of this sin, right? They have to be horrible in some variety, right? Like these sins are not meant to be good manifestations, right? But at the same time, you have to make them likable enough as
Right.
characters that people want to read about them and also relevant to modern day life. So it was a really fun exercise to say, like, okay, well, what does, for example, greed or lust look like from a modern perspective? And like, when I started the series and built out the character of Lucifer specifically, right? Like he is this he's the devil obviously, but he is now also this billionaire who lives topside in New York City. He owns a company called Apollyon Incorporated that is very similar to Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. Like they own a lot of luxury goods, like because he's the devil, right? Like the devil would work in luxury, like
Mhm.
pride, you know, like that, like so once I built out his character was like, how can I do that similarly with each one? So then you're asking yourself things like, okay, well, like if Sloth is this billionaire, what companies does he own? And of course, it's going to be things like Netflix, right, where you're just sitting and binging all
Right,
day,
yeah.
and like commentary on things, like keeping it fun and like making their characters enough of the personification of their sin while also like keeping some fun to it because you don't want them to be predictable, right? So that's the real challenge is like keeping them embodied as who they're supposed to be, but also likable and
Right.
still like interesting as characters. Like, but they were a lot of fun to write. I really enjoy the siblings.
Yeah, I can imagine that that would have been a very fun challenge. This, of course, isn't the first time that we have seen the seven original sins portrayed in a book or a movie. The movie Seven comes to mind. Um, so many scenes in that movie creeped me out. I don't have a high ick factor. Regardless, uh, Kate said something about personifying the seven original sins, but also making them fun and likable, which I don't know if I ever thought about trying to do that. I mean, we anthropomorphize lots of different things, especially in fantasy books, but making the seven deadly sins personable and likable. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. Of course, there are reasons that we are drawn to those sins, right? People still engage with those activities all the time, so there is something tempting and likable about them. But how do you bring those into people that and characters that readers want to actually engage with and read more about? Very interesting challenge. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of this episode. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute, I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket. I'm going on a trip and I don't plan to visit. I'm gonna stay there till I feel like I'm winning, and this is just the beginning. I need a big change, help me feel like living. I need a big swing, home runs I'm hitting, and I'll never look back, moving on till I get it all. And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Kait Ballenger. We are talking about her original Sinners series, and before the break, she was talking about making characters out of seven sins and making those characters likable and ones that readers would want to engage with further. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Kate. Yeah, I can imagine that that would have been a very fun challenge. but a challenging one as well. I mean, it's a challenge for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. And well, and with so many of them, right? Because you're
Yes.
talking, that's like six characters. So I had to really balance with only bringing a few into the first book, right? I didn't want to overwhelm the reader with too many side characters. And so that it was very intentional that I was just going to pick just a few in book one to kind of introduce. And throughout the course of the series, we do get to know the others and like they get introduced more thoroughly. But I've got my few that I keep coming back to that are like the favorite siblings to play with.
Towards the beginning of the book, there's actually a line that made me laugh. So it did. One of the characters says, just very casually, "The devil wears."
Oh yeah.
Did it come naturally as you were writing it, or did you think of it one day and be like, I have to write this into this book somewhere?
Well, honestly, that line in particular, I knew that like when I was throwing around like comp titles and things like this for pitching the book, right? One of the things my agent and I had talked about is because Lucifer owns this LVMH style company and like there's a lot of references to like high fashion and things of that sort throughout the series. I was like, it's got like a touch of the Devil Wears Prada vibes to it, right? And so I was thinking about that movie and I was like, well, it can't be I can't just make a Devil Wears Prada joke. I've got to kind of turn it on its head. So that's why I was like, okay, well, the devil doesn't wear Prada, he wears Versace. Right? Like so it just kind of very naturally came out of like putting in some of those cultural jokes and references and it just kind of popped up in the middle of writing and I was like, okay, we're just keeping that line.
Yes, makes sense. But yeah, it did make me snort. I had to try not to. I think I was reading it while my husband was sleeping, and I had to not laugh actually out loud. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad for that. I'm always happy to hear when readers tell me that they've like had a good laugh or enjoyed the story.
right. Let's talk more about Charlotte, who is our female lead. What about her is going to resonate with readers?
I think what's going to resonate with readers about Charlotte is that she is kind of still, in some ways, still figuring out who she is, and she doesn't have the cleanest past, right? Like she's not the perfect heroine.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlotte as a character is new to New York City. She is the daughter of a very sort of far right evangelical minister. And she has grown up sort of entrenched in evangelical purity culture, which I think a lot of readers can relate to either being in that subculture or potentially being affected by it in some variety. And so Charlotte has been trying to escape that life, and so she runs off to New York City, hoping to escape her father and this background that she comes from. And that's when she ends up sort of by chance working at Lucifer's company. She thinks she's just going to be an intern, but that working for the devil means her very religious father is not going to follow her there, and that her past will not catch up to her. But then, by twist of events, she ends up basically being the assistant to the head of Lucifer's PR. And so she ends up interacting with him more thoroughly than expected, and then chaos ends up ensuing. But I think what readers relate to about Charlotte is that she's still kind of becoming the best version of herself, but also I feel like she has relatable moments of just like female anger that I think a lot of women can relate to. Like, I mean, I think this is not too much of a spoiler since it's on the back cover, but when she meets Lucifer, they clash and like they do not get along very well at first initially. And so because he gets so under her skin, she writes this scathing press release that she does not intend to send. It's just meant to be kind of like letting off steam as one does when you're annoyed at your jerk of a boss. And but then somehow it ends up getting leaked to the press, and that is how she ends up basically being blackmailed into fake dating the devil. Um, so Charlotte's life is not going quite the way she planned.
Yeah. Yeah, not so much. We've talked about the challenges of personifying the deadly sins. What are the challenges of making Lucifer a love interest?
Oh yeah. Well, I think it helps in the dark romance space, right? Like that, like this was never going to be anything but a dark romance. I don't think you could write the hero as like a contemporary, like the devil
Right,
can't be a contemporary romance hero, right? Like he
right.
has to have a touch of sin, a touch of darkness to him. So like that is, so it was always going to be in that space. So the genre itself kind of it lends itself well to that because we expect for him to be more than a little bad if he's the hero of a dark romance novel. But at the same time, the challenge is making the reader almost like almost seduced by him, right? Because not so much in like in a spicy heat sense, but like we have to like him enough to want to keep reading about him, right? Like he's very much a morally gray character because we we when you think about the devil as like an archetype, right? Like he's supposed to be tempting and drawing you in. And
Mhm.
so that's what you kind of have to do with him as a character because he has to kind of lull you into a place of complacency where you think, oh, okay, maybe he's not quite as bad as we thought he was going to be, right? And then he turns around and like, oh, actually, but he is still the devil, right?
Right.
And I think that's where, like, as an archetype, that's where the devil's power is supposed to lie, is in making you want to be close to him to do bad things. Like, and so writing that and kind of almost pulling one over on the reader in that way is was definitely the key challenge of like getting them to like him and fall in love with him enough while also sort of conveniently forgetting who he actually is,
Right.
which he does warn Charlotte about very early in the book. So
Yes. You did make a reference to 50 Shades of Grey. This is not closed door romance. This is
yes.
high on the spice level,
Yeah.
which some readers really are drawn to. Other readers, maybe are not quite so. But that being less of the point, then you do make a lot of commentary, and there's deeper elements to this book. It's not just romance or romantasy, but there's commentary on sexuality, on, as you said, female purity culture, socio-political commentary. Was there any particular um, how, I guess, how was that writing those elements into a dark romantasy, a paranormal romance?
For me, I feel like it felt like a very natural extension of the world building. Like it wasn't so much like that like intentionally set out to make that commentary. It was just that as I was writing and as I was building this world, like and stepping into like Charlotte's character, right? Because we get both POVs in Original Sinner. We get both Lucifer and Charlotte, but it's primarily written from Charlotte's point of view. And so as I was writing her character, it just felt like a natural extension to include those commentaries. And I mean, I like on a personal level, like I'm a very openly political person, and so it felt very natural for me to be just making these comments because they're things I think and believe like as I'm writing. But at the same time, I don't think any of my previous books or series had gotten quite that political. So
Mhm.
there was a little bit of nerves involved with that I wasn't sure like how my readers were ultimately going to feel about all this sort of socio-political commentary that was
Yeah.
going in. But at the same time, I was like, part of what I had wanted for Original Sinner when I started the project was it was mainly actually just supposed to be for me. It was
Mhm.
that like it I was feeling really burnt out dealing with a lot of different publishing related things. And so I really wanted a series and a book specifically that was just something that like scratched like my creative itch
Mm-hmm.
basically. And it was just meant to be a joy and like passion project. So anytime I sort of felt the urge to kind of pull back a little bit or tone it down because readers might not like it as much, I was like, nope, I had to kind of check myself and not do that
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, this is supposed to be for me. And like my job as the artist in this moment is just to be so vulnerable and messy, right? That like people like it or they won't, right?
Yeah.
And I'm ultimately very glad that I did that because like my readers, like the readers who do like it really enjoyed the socio-political commentary in it as well. And it's kind of opened up a newer part of my platform to be able to have these more open conversations about some of the themes in my books. That has just been really wonderful. Like, I've had a lot of readers come up to me and tell me that they are like either they come from an evangelical background or they're ex-evangelicals and they were very like purity culture and have a lot of trauma related from it and felt like this book made them feel seen and like they really appreciated the ways that those elements were deconstructed in the book. And so when I get comments from readers like that, that makes the fear that I'm going too far or being too like too controversial kind of worth it, I suppose.
You've heard authors on the podcast talk about all kinds of reasons for why they write and how they write, but it really sounds like this process of just writing this book for her maybe opened up some different possibilities for how or the way Kait writes. We're going to go ahead and take our second break of this episode. When we come back, we'll be continuing this conversation and really how that process was for her to write this book and the series of books in the way that she did. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review podcast, and I'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review podcast and my conversation with Kait Ballenger. This is your second and final reminder that if you want to support the podcast in a monetary way, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. If you are watching this on YouTube, of course, you can see that video playing next to me that has the link. You can also see that link scrolling along the bottom of your screen throughout the episode. For those of you who are listening to this as audio only, I will say it a second time, gsmcpodcast.net. As I have said before, this helps not only the podcast, but the network as a whole. Your support is greatly appreciated. You all are amazing. I am so grateful for all of you. Let's get back to the episode. Before the break, Kait was talking about writing this book really just for her and how that changed the way she approached the writing of it and how that changed kind of what she wrote and even now the way readers interact with what she wrote in this series and the questions and conversations that are happening on her platforms. Let's return to the conversation with Kait. And I can understand the fear, but there's probably part of you that it might maybe felt that it was kind of freeing to write that way as well, because you were just doing it for yourself at first.
Yeah, it was very freeing. And now I feel like I'm much less hesitant to hold myself back in that way. And I think particularly without getting too deep into it, in the current political climate that we're living in, like staying silent on these things is not the person I want to be. And so I feel like it was a good timing for when the series came out, that this is a part of my platform that is really just opening up and allowing me to kind of speak truth to power. So
Has this book been banned?
Not that I know of yet. I won't be surprised if it gets there. Um, I, like it has its a fairly sizable readership, but I know that like just from a publishing perspective, like my publisher is Amazon Montlake, and the majority of my readers are KU readers. And so I know that a lot of those readers tend to wait and pick up the series when the whole like
Mhm.
series is complete
Mhm.
because they like to read in one big arc. So I know that me and my publisher are anticipating a much bigger push of readers when book three in the series, Beautiful Redeemer, comes out in May. And so I won't be surprised if I start getting notices about it being banned after that point. So I'm kind of like bracing myself still. But as far as I know, it has not been banned anywhere, but I wouldn't be surprised if it gets there eventually.
I don't know. I feel like it's maybe a point of pride at this point in our
Yeah, yeah.
circumstances.
I will say I'm a part of Authors Against Bans, which is a author-run organization that does sort of volunteer work around working against book banning, and I do think to some degree there is a point of pride when you're an author of like, yeah, my book is like, I've gotten it banned, but at the same time, I there is almost this pervasive rumor in publishing that your book getting banned is actually a good thing because it'll generate more sales, and that's actually not true, right?
No.
It actually does negatively impact authors. And
Yeah.
so part of me is like, I think I would have mixed feelings if it
Oh,
ever did get
absolutely.
banned.
Yeah.
Pride that it feels controversial enough for that, but also like I would,
Right.
I'd be fighting against, getting it banned because I do not believe in book bans. I think we should
Exactly.
all be
Yes. Yeah.
reading as widely as we want to and choosing our own book content.
Right. I completely agree. Um, when it comes to research for the book, anything particular stand out to you for like topics of interest that you researched?
So, the biggest point of research for me was a lot of the geography and locations related to New York City because I do not live in New York. I've been there many times and I love the city, and that's part of why I chose to set it there. But I had to be very careful to balance, the real locations and places in the book versus the fictional ones. So that was a major point of research. Like, people were always surprised, for example, that Lucifer's penthouse, 172 Madison Avenue, is real. All the fixtures that are described in his penthouse are true to the penthouse that
Hmm.
exists in that building. So people are always very shocked because that's one of the ones that they tend to think like, oh, this can't be like actually true. These 25-foot ceilings in the penthouse and 5 floors and all nope, that is
Wow.
a real penthouse. It's actually known it's nicknamed Lay Penthouse, and
Oh,
it's like, and it is in New York City. It actually exists. And then there's other things that like street names, that sort of thing that I had to be sure, like timing wise, how long it takes Charlotte to ride the subway from X point
wow.
to B. So that was a lot of the research areas. And I think there's more like real locations in the book than people recognize. Um, but on top of that, there's some of the mythos of just Christianity in general, which growing up in the Christian church, I was already familiar with a lot of it, but you have to sort of double check yourself on things.
Yeah.
But also give yourself a little bit of grace when you're playing with like mythology and religion made like personified.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that would be a very interesting way to, task to set for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny because like I often speak with people about the series and like we get into the more religious aspects of it, and it's always interesting to get into the discussion of like Lucifer is never directly named in the Christian Bible at any
Right.
point. Like most of the mythos we have around him is more mythology based,
Yeah.
like a huge portion of it comes from like Milton's Paradise Lost,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so that's always like a fun like little rabbit hole to go down when we get into like the mythology discussions in the series.
Yeah, that's a very deep rabbit hole that you could
Yeah.
spend a lot of time in.
Yes.
You mentioned the third book comes out in May, and that so this will be a complete trilogy then.
Yes, yeah. So the first three books in the series follow Charlotte and Lucifer. They've got a continuing arc. And then I have tentative plans after that to write about the other siblings because I just love them too much and I think that they also have stories to be told.
Okay. You answered my follow-up question. So you will most likely be returning to this world.
Yeah, yeah. When I wrote Original Sinner, I actually intended it to be a standalone, and then I was gonna go on to actually writing Lust, Asmodeus's book. That's one of Lucifer's siblings.
Mhm.
And I was gonna go on to writing that next, but when I went to start it, there was just like something at the back of my mind that was almost like, tickling things, and I was like, no, no, there's more to tell about what's going on with Charlotte and Lucifer, because in typical romance fashion, they are together at the end of
Oh,
Original Sinner. So we have our like, I guess what you could call a happily ever
I
after. I don't know
yeah.
that it's quite happy,
Yes.
but happy-ish. Like they are together romantically, we'll say that.
Yeah.
And um and I just kind of had this idea at the back of my mind that their story was not quite told yet. And so I approached my editor because we had full plans that I was going to be writing about the other sinners. And I told her, I don't think that, that Lucifer and Charlotte's story is quite done here. And she was a little hesitant with the idea at first, but I said, look, let me just write like the first 50 pages, right? Like just the opening bit, and we'll see what you think of it. And so I did, and I sent it to her, and then once she read it, she was like, "Oh yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be going." Like she was able to see the vision of the arc of writing the three-book series about them. And now when I look back, I can't believe that I was ever convincing myself that they were just going to be one book only.
I mean, yeah, I can see with where it ends that it could potentially be a standalone, but I also understand the moving the story forward. It's always hard to talk about series on a podcast like this because you don't want to give a lot away. What can you say about book two?
So what I can say about book two is that Charlotte and Lucifer's relationship has obviously gone from being fake initially to now it is real, and Charlotte is really grappling with the events that happened at the end of book one and what this means for who she's becoming, and what it means to be Lucifer's fiance and the queen of hell, essentially. What does life look like as Lucifer's partner? And Lucifer, right, is also going through his own paces as well, because here he is, the devil. He's always been operating as a solo entity, and now suddenly he's got someone he's sort of responsible for on a supernatural level who his siblings and other sorts of bad actors are not quite so welcoming toward.
Yeah.
So he's got some things that he's got to get in order to make sure that Charlotte is not like put in danger by being fully entered into the paranormal and supernatural elements of his world. So
I have so many questions that I can't ask because they're way big spoilers. But sometimes I struggle a little bit to keep my mouth shut because I have so many questions that I want to ask authors that I can't ask during the actual interview because we try to avoid spoilers. Of course, authors want you to read their books, but I have so many questions that would give too many key details away. I'm working on it. It's okay. To the point that when I read books that are not for the podcast, I start formulating questions to ask those authors to whom I will never speak. it's an issue. At any rate, we're going to take our third break of this episode. When we come back, a little bit more about writing Charlotte and Lucifer as a couple, what that was like, what were the issues with writing a couple like this. You are tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Kait Ballenger. Before the break, we were talking about the interesting complexities of writing a couple such as Charlotte and Lucifer. Let's go ahead and return to that conversation, which we're going to pick up right at that point. I was thinking while you were talking, if any couple could use couples counseling, it would be these two.
Oh, yeah.
Who the heck would you go to?
Yeah, exactly. They absolutely need some couples counseling, and I feel like a big part of book 2 is them really working out the what it's like for them to be a couple, right? And what that means, and I think some readers were kind of surprised by that because I'm like, no, they're not just gonna ride off into the sunset. There's so many problems with the way that their relationship started. Like, they're gonna have to grapple with these things now. Yeah. And then maybe we can ride off into the sunset in later books, right?
Like I said, I could see it as a standalone, but then I started thinking more about it, and I would have so many questions of like, wait, what? How?
Yeah, and that's ultimately, I think, where my head went with it too, is like when I started to move on to potentially switching to Lust's book, I was like, but wait, I feel like we really didn't resolve that particular thread, right? Like, we really have to keep going with it to see what the consequences of this would be on their relationship, right? Because Charlotte is very forgiving, but I mean, she's very new to Lucifer's world as well. I will say, one thing that I don't think is too much of a spoiler for Original Sinner is, it feels very grounded in a contemporary sort of world until the second half of the book is when we start to get more of the paranormal elements making a bigger appearance. Mm-hmm. So we're really just getting introduced to a lot of the supernatural elements in the second half. And Charlotte especially, right? Because we're seeing those things from Lucifer's point of view, but Charlotte is not experiencing them firsthand until the very tail end of the book. And so she's got a lot to grapple with now that she's been fully let into that portion of Lucifer's life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, again, so many questions. What do you think draws you to writing romantasy and paranormal romance?
Oh gosh, I think, well, I read that when I was very young. I was reading a lot of Laurel K. Hamilton and Anne Rice and the sort of classic paranormal writers. And it was just something that at the time a lot of romance readers, it's almost like a generational thing. And I remember I had cousins who are much older than me, that are more almost like aunts, And them and some of my actual aunts were all reading a lot of paranormal romance at the time. It was like the popular subgenre in the 90s, right? Like
Mhm.
Queen of the Damned was coming out like in the movie theaters and that sort of thing. And so I remember that being something that I was like, "Oh, they're all doing this. I want to be a part of this,"
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Like as young kids do.
Mhm.
And so I just naturally sort of gravitated to that subgenre because that's what they were reading then. And I think because it was what I was reading when I was younger, like once I was at a point where I was telling stories myself, it just sort of naturally translated over to this is the genre I've loved since I was a kid. And I also just love speculative fiction in general, like the endless possibilities of fantasy and like whether it's more paranormal or whether it's romantasy or even high fantasy stories. Like I just like that they give you an ability to sort of make some of those socio-political commentaries. And also just like when I read as a reader, like I'm reading for escape. I want to a certain degree, I want to be whisked into another world and kind of forget what's going on in this one to a degree for
Mhm.
like, for a certain period of time. And so I think that's always just sort of appealed to me. Like as a writer, I don't think I've ever had an idea for a story that it doesn't have some sort of like magic or fantasy element to it,
Yeah.
but eventually, but right now that's just sort of been my wheelhouse.
Mhm. uh, Slightly different subject, but you say in your acknowledgments or author's note at the end that this book does feature BDSM and that you tried to stay true to what that community would understand, but that you, as an author, also as authors do, did take a few maybe liberties isn't the right word, uh,
Yes.
but how did you find that balance? And did you have beta readers?
I did have beta readers, and so that was helpful. And I think the real balance is just that when you're writing dark romance specifically, you know that some of the things that the heroes in particular are going to be doing is not always like, the nicest things, I guess you could say. So where the elements of the BDSM wrap in the series and the dark romance elements in this crossover is like everything that happens between Lucifer and Charlotte is very much consensual. It's usually in line, usually with standard like BDSM best practices. Where it gets murky is in the elements related to how their relationship starts with him being her boss, her
Mhm.
feeling like, she's gotta fake date him because otherwise she's gonna lose her job. And so those are the dark romance elements where if this were happening in a real relationship in the real world, obviously none of that would be okay. Like it would be very problematic. And so that's where I think it gets murky and separating out like the power play aspects of the BDSM elements and the power play like fantasy of the book that crosses over into things that it would not be okay in the real
Right.
world.
Okay.
Um, so the kink itself is mostly accurate. It's the power dynamics, I
Right.
think, between Charlotte and Lucifer that really get very uneven at points in ways that in, modern contemporary BDSM culture would not be okay. And I very much wanted to make sure that I caveated that because, this is a community that like that I for people who are not as familiar with it is steeped in queer culture and queer history. And so it's a semi-marginalized group
Mhm.
that I don't want to be responsible for creating bad representation for people who are already marginalized. And I think there was a lot of discussion when 50 Shades in particular came into the cultural lexicon about whether it was presented in a problem, whether the BDSM in the series was problematic. And there were times where it crossed over into being somewhat abusive in that
Mhm.
series rather than consensual, like, kink
Right.
between two consenting adults. So I never want readers to approach this series and ultimately like think that some of the things that Lucifer is doing in a power dynamic with Charlotte is okay. And so that's why I really wanted to put that that caveat in there, is I wanted to make sure that readers knew that there's a distinction between fantasy and reality in
Right.
this series, and we're playing with the fantasy of these things in a way that is not always accurate to real life.
Yeah. Although, as you were speaking, I just started thinking I really do not want to be working in HR in Lucifer's company.
No, oh my gosh, no. They like he is such an HR nightmare on so many levels.
It's bad enough that that Charlotte works on his PR team. I don't want to work in HR.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, so, what are you working on currently?
So currently I just finished up the proofs for Beautiful Redeemer, so that's just finalized, and I'm starting into a proposal for another series that I can't talk about too much yet, but genre-wise, I think it's going to be a dark academia romance, so we'll see what comes of that.
So, slightly different direction.
Yeah, it's just a proposal idea, so we'll see
Mhm.
whether it ends up taking. But after that, I'm probably going to shift into working on the spinoff about the other sinners, because I really want to write about them
Yeah.
still.
Yeah. It would seem that the spinoff with the siblings is definitely happening. I think that's a good thing because they are. It sounds like they are definitely taking up a lot of space in Kate's brain. Like they're kind of poking at her. Maybe that's part of being sins. They're tempting, right? They're like poking at her, tempting her to write this, but not in necessarily a bad way. So I don't know what I'm saying. We're going to go ahead and take our last break of this episode. When we come back, we'll be talking about why Kate started writing, when Kate started writing, all of those nosy questions that I love to ask. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with Kait Ballenger. Before the break, Kate was talking about her current works in progress and how she definitely wants to get back to or around to writing the spin-offs about Lucifer's siblings, those other sins as personified in this series. Let's go ahead and return to the conclusion of my conversation with Kate. You mentioned getting that you've been writing for quite a while. So was that something that you always wanted to do, or what really prompted you to start writing, to try to write for publication?
I started very early on. So my first book with Harlequin released when I was 21.
Mhm.
So I started very young, and it was in my first semester of college that I really started getting into it. I had been a big reader at that point for a number of years. And I actually went into college as a Spanish major. I thought that I was going to major in languages and work like in, in translation, like that sort of thing. So I already had an interest in language study, just in a different capacity, and I just at the time I had actually like Twilight was really popular then,
Mm-hmm.
and I had written like a short Twilight fan fiction thing for like some online like
Mm-hmm.
contest, right? And I ended up winning the contest with my little like short Twilight fan fiction. And I was like, oh, hey, maybe I'm actually like good at this writing thing, and it was kind of fun. So at that point, I was like, well, I'm going to try writing something original, just sort of out of the fun of it. And when I did, I ended up writing my first book, which is not published and shall never see the light of day.
Yeah.
It was not any good. But I had so much fun doing it that I was like, oh, this is actually, I really enjoy this. Like, I got very passionate about it. So I ended up switching my major to English and minoring in creative writing. And then the rest was kind of history from there. So I just kept writing. And then I ended up getting my agent shortly after I finished my undergrad degree, and as I was entering into my MFA program, and it just kind of went onward from there.
Well, all right. From all of that experience, then, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking maybe they would like to write?
My advice would be to keep the writing fun, but keep the business business.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a mentality that when you start writing for publication that it all either has to be very business focused and like I have to write to market, or I have to do this because this is what publishers want, or any number of things. And I think that there's some value in approaching it that way when you start looking for an agent or start shopping a book in publishing, because publishing ultimately is a business. But I think the creative side of it needs to stay creative and fun as much as possible. And I think early in many writers' careers, they often conflate the two. And so I would love to tell them to keep the writing as fun craft. Like you you always want to be looking to be better at your craft. Like being a writer is very, very much like a an art in that way, because there's ways to improve and there's ways to get better, and you always want to be striving for those things while having fun with it, and then
Mhm.
put on your business hat when you need to.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense. And thank you. Um, how about when you take time to read just for you, favorite authors?
Oh gosh. So I because I write romance, like that is my favorite genre to read in as well. I will never say no to a Sarah McLean book because I think she's just an amazing romance writer and such a genre expert in romance. So I really love anything she writes. I'm also a huge fan of Alexis Hall, who writes a lot of queer romance of multiple pairings. Boyfriend Material by him is one of my favorites. I also really love A Lady for a Duke, which is a historical romance he did with a trans heroine and cisgender hero, and it was just amazing. So really love that one as well. Um, I'm also a big fan of Katie Robert. She writes similarly spicy stuff. And so there's just so many authors I really, really love. Sarah Kate is another, Adriana Anders, like there's so many. Like I I have such a hard time picking favorite authors and favorite books because I like so many different subgenres of romance for many different reasons. And I also read in YA and in nonfiction and many other things. So it's very hard to choose favorites.
You said you have two children. Do they like to read?
Yes, yeah. So my youngest is still at an age where he's like, picking up reading and not quite at a fluent enough level to read much on his own. But my oldest is a very advanced reader for his age and loves reading. He's very into Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, and we're just now tiptoeing into the Hunger Games because I think he's old enough that he can kind of start to understand a little bit of that commentary.
Right.
So it's been a lot of fun to like read some of those more classic YA books with him, and he's just eating them up.
Yeah. Yeah. And you get someone to talk about fantasy with.
Yeah. He loves to read fantasy as well, so that's a fun for the
Yeah.
two of us.
I love that. If people want to know more about you and your books, website and any social media you're active on.
Yeah, so readers can find me at www.kateballenger.com, and I am also on TikTok and Instagram. So I'm on Instagram as at Kate Ballenger and TikTok as just at Kate Ballenger.
Okay, thank you. Kait, is there anything that we have not covered that you wanted to make sure you highlighted during our time?
I think we've covered most of it, but just, the books are available both in paperback, ebook, and in Kindle Unlimited, Original Sinner and Wicked Believer. So the first two are out now. And then book three, Beautiful Redeemer, comes out May 26th. So
Okay.
not too long from now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk to me about the book and the series. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Thank you so much once again to Kait for joining me to talk about the first two in the Original Sinners trilogy. As a reminder, they are Original Sinner and Wicked Believer. Remember, Original Sinner, first book, Original Sinners with an S, the trilogy. I'm sure you'll be able to find it regardless, as long as you type in Original Sinner with or without an S and Kait's name. It's available on Amazon or other places. You can find more information on her website, of course. And thank you once again to Kait for joining me. If you are a fan of paranormal romance or dark romantasy, then this is a series that you will want to check out. Reminder that spice level is high, so just a warning, just putting that out there in case you are thinking you're getting something other than what you're getting. But I mean, if you listen to the conversation with Kait, and if you know that this is a book about fake dating the devil of all people, Lucifer himself, then you know that there's going to be a few different layers than your average your average romance novel. And it is dark romantasy, not just romantasy. So just giving those warnings. Don't want you picking up something that's going to make you, I don't even know what that face means. Whatever word you want to put with that face, feel free. So definitely check this out. And of course, the third one is coming out in May, so you will have the complete trilogy. If you want to read the first two now, if you want to wait till they're all complete, I can never decide. Sometimes I like to read them immediately, and then I have to wait until the next one comes out, and then I have to wait until the next one comes out. Sometimes I try to wait until the series is complete, but I don't know, maybe you're more patient than I am. Probably it wouldn't be difficult. Anyway, thank you to Kait. Thank you for you. Thank you for you. I mean, yes, thank you for you, but thank you to you as well for joining me for this episode. I hope that you will join me for the next episode. This was my second interview of this past weekend with Wendy G. And it's another series, but a very different series than the one we just spoke about. So the first two in this series, Fleet Landing and Side Hustle. Fleet Landing is currently out. Side Hustle will be out soon. Early this coming, next year, but that's, like 48 hours away. So two books will be available. Wendy will be talking about these. As you can see, there are firefighters on the cover. This is a book about a series of arsons, but the arsonist might not be exactly who you think it is or for the reasons that you think the fires are being set. Lots of complex layers to this story. You've got 3 different characters who will be appearing throughout the series and who get their own points of view. We see a lot of Coop, who is a fire marshal and trying to solve these arsonists or being involved in that investigation. Anyway, I'm telling you more than you need to know because Wendy will tell you everything you need to know when you tune into the next episode. Should be out on Friday. In the meantime, of course, if you are a fan of this podcast, please do me the favor, the honor of liking, following, and subscribing on whatever platform you either listen to or watch the episode on. Something else that really helps that algorithm is to give a positive review. Just leave a quick positive review. Doesn't take much effort or much time, and it really, truly helps the algorithm do the same thing for your favorite books and your favorite authors. And I thank you for all of us in advance of you doing that. You can follow the podcast on social media: Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Find the podcast, ask me lots of questions. I ask other people lots of questions, so hey, hit me up and ask me questions. I hope that you're doing really well. I hope that you have the perfect New Year's Eve tomorrow, whatever that entails, and I hope that 2026 brings you joy and happiness and so many books to get yourself lost in. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.